From Buffalo Toronto Public Media and WBFO, this is Buffalo What's Next Producers Picks. Highlights of conversations from previous episodes. On this week's episode,
they also had those feelings of where does the safety begin or where does it end? They didn't really know what was going on. Like when I had the initial circle sit down, they were just like, I'm scared to go to school. I'm scared to go grocery shop. Don't want to go to Tops at all.
We'll hear from McCann from the Buffalo All-Star Extreme Dance and Cheer team. Next,
like Dan was saying, to kind of like form this area of change or something different where we can gear the progression towards something different and better.
From Healing Grounds Coffee and Sanctuary, Dan White and Asman Ndayisabwa. And finally,
we're not just one style barbershop. We cut everybody here. We service everybody, everyone. You know what I mean?
Kenny Harris and the crew from Signature Cutz. First off, NPR's podcast series, Embedded, recently chose to center a number of their episodes around the Buffalo All-Star Extreme Cheerleading and Dance team. One of the base's senior members, and now coach, McCann, was tapped to host the podcast series and joined Jay Moran to discuss the process of creating the NPR podcast, as well as the eventful year that the Base family endured.
Micaiah, a Buffalo native, going now to Virginia State University, but also the host of the NPR podcast Embedded, Buffalo Extreme. If you're just joining us, the podcast talks a lot about the Base team, the cheerleading and dance team here in Buffalo, but also reflects us back to May 14th and how it has impacted so many people here in the community. And they've kept Micaiah very busy here over the last year. We talked about how things have changed for the team, but the podcast takes us through a lot of the ups and downs of the team over the last year, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So let's review a little bit. We're going to encourage people, obviously, to go check out the podcast for themselves, but give us a little taste of what went on for Base over the last year.
For the last year, Base has honestly been through a roller coaster that's just nonstop. The first roller coaster was the mass shooting, and a lot of our girls live in the surrounding areas of Tops, that east side area, just common areas. And a lot of our kids also do either live directly, across the street or 2 blocks down. Given that, a lot of our girls either, one, stopped coming because it was just like, there's a lot of, it was just a lot of high emotions going on for a lot of them. And then, aside from the mass shooting, Auntie Annie decided to close that gym because of safety. And there were girls coming up to her like, I don't want to come back and I don't want to be at Base if we're going to be at Main Street. And she was just like, I was already looking into a gym, so let me just get this together. But you can't just open a gym in a day and expect it to up and run, regardless if you have 100 girls or 20, And given that we moved gyms for 5 to 6 months, they didn't have a gym. They didn't have any mats. They couldn't train the way that they were supposed to, and they couldn't get ready for competition season. So it also set them back for competitions. All-Star cheers all year round. But for them this year, it was very, very cut short because they didn't have a gym. And then during that time, we went back to square one, which was the crucial center for us, which is no mats, hardwood floor. We had to share the gym with the dancers and the cheerleaders. And also it being just a community center, we had to share it with other people. So it was like, there's about 150 people coming in and out, whether that's for cheer, dance, or just the community in general. So we had to go back to that. And then competition season came, and the first competition, it was good, but we knew they could be better. But there were just things that were definitely in the way because their mental still wasn't in it. There was a couple girls on the senior team that couldn't compete because their academics. There's a couple people on the senior team.
Academics?
Their academics were in the way as well.
Oh,
so it
Auntie Annie
was
wasn't going for that.
No, Auntie Annie and my mom were definitely not going for that, and they had their fair share of that, and we also had the overcome the fact that these girls were not okay either. We expect children to move on because it's like, you're a child, you don't really understand or you don't know. But in reality, just us prepping them for future and success, we definitely had that turn around and blow up in our faces. Those girls are very emotionally intelligent, and that's what I've learned doing the interviews, that they were truly impacted through it as well. that's what I learned throughout this year, not just from moving.
So let's explore that a little bit, if you don't mind. What were some of the things that they were saying to you?
The interviews were kind of hardcore for me because, I'm usually in the hot seat of being a big sister, for them, or like just looking up to them in general, them looking up to me. But in this situation, I was kind of more on the side of actually listening and talking to them, not only about cheer, like, oh, like, do this to make your jumps better. Now it was like, how are you? What's going on? Like, how do you feel?
And were you picking up on cues where people were, like, sometimes we say, how are you? And you might get, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or I'm all right. Or I'm all right.
Those are the answers that I get, the normal basic answers, which is, I'm fine, I'm cool, I'm good. And I was just like, no. I had to definitely kick in those podcast things, those interviewer things, which was like, oh, well, why do you feel fine? Like those, I had to keep coming back with questions with them because just one worded questions weren't working. Like, just the how are you? And then I got the blunt answer of, oh, I'm fine. And it was like, no, so I had to keep pulling that out of them. I just had to keep asking questions back to back to get the answers that I wanted, which was, I want you to tell me what's really wrong. And then it also just made it way better because I'm their big sister. It's not like they're talking to like my mom or Auntie Yanni. They're not talking to a parent, so they were way more open as well. Some of the interviews like Milani, for example, it only took like one interview and she was full on open, but there were other kids that were just like, I have to keep talking, I have to keep going. We did interviews with Nicere like twice, 3 times, because it was like the first interview was just so like, oh, yeah, I'm fine, I'm good. And I'm just like, that's not how, I know her. That's not how she sounds. That's definitely not how she performs either. I just had to keep coming back. It was like, I'm not going to give up. And I know that they feel some type of way because it showed through their cheer performance. So.
Oh, so you could see then?
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
What did you see? Like, when you say their cheer performance, what was missing? What can you see? How can you describe
honestly,
that?
For a cheerleader, especially an all-star cheerleader, you get scored and judged off of just your performance in general. Like, even though you did the skill good, you have to perfect it. Like, you have to basically fit the part and look the part. You can't just slap lipstick and bow on somebody and expect them to go on the stage. It was kind of like we expected them to have lipstick and a bow on and put on a great performance. And then it was like, I'm used to this girl having the best facials and the just that high energetic energy. That's what you're supposed to have when you're a cheerleader. You want to put on a show. You're a performer. But it was like dead. Like their faces were dead. Like a lot of stuff that they love to do, like normal, motions that we've specifically made up for them. They were just like super, just like not lazy, but it was like, this is not you, so what's really going on?
Right. And what were you finding then? Like, so what's really going on? What were people? It sounds like you really have the interviewers touch when it comes to digging. But then what came up of those conversations? What were you hearing?
What came up out of those conversations was, one with like Milani. She was just like, I still feel some type of way. I watched the video and I still see, sometimes when I'll have to, because she has to go past Tops, every day. She's like, when I go past there, I just remember the video. And I'm like, that's not something that you should remember. And it was with Nicera. She was just like, my feelings are hurt. She also did lose somebody related as well. But she was just like, I'm not feeling okay. I'm not feeling okay at all, actually. I want to tell you what's wrong. And she told me, she was just like, I don't even want to go to a funeral. Like, I don't want to go to Tops. I don't want to go to base. I don't want to go anywhere. Why should I have to go somewhere where I don't feel comfortable? Then some of the girls were also involved in schools where it was just like, even after that, there were like silly pranks, like, oh, well, I'm going to come up to your school and do this. And then it was like, they also had those feelings of where does the safety begin or where does it end? They didn't really know what was going on. Like, when I had the initial circle sit down, they were just like, I'm scared to go to school. I'm scared to go grocery shopping now. I don't want to go to Wegmans with my mom. I don't want to go to Tops at all. I tell my mom to keep me home when we go grocery shopping. And it was like, no, like, those are the things I started finding out when we started getting into it a little bit more. Those are not answers that I got the first time around when we did that initial circle up. So it took them a couple months to get like deeply embedded in their feelings. And I was like, let me try talking to the girls. And that's just really where it all jump started.
Wow. It's interesting to hear how you're saying that it's not a surprise to hear that young people are impacted, but yet at the same time, we're not necessarily hearing from the young people of Buffalo about this. We've done dozens of interviews here, obviously, with a lot of different people, and we've had great conversations about it. But young people, these are the people that we need to take over next.
And that's exactly why I said it a couple times, like in the podcast. Their voices need to be heard. I don't think anybody expected it to have a ripple effect on the younger generation, whether that ranges from ages 6 to 18. Nobody really thought about the kids afterwards. It was kind of like adult feelings.
Sure.
It was a type of situation where it was like, only adults could feel this way. And it was in reality, it was kind of like I was seeing it firsthand at base that it was like, no, these kids they feel some type of way too. I also feel a way. And there were just other people, like friends or like just people on social media that were also posting. It was like, I feel a way. And it was like, nobody's listening to the kids. Nobody's listening to us. Our voices are so small compared to an adult, and it was like they never had the opportunity or the chance to be like, I was impacted and I want to tell the story. So
how are the girls doing? Do you sense that, I don't want to say improving, because that's not really the right word I want to get to, but that they're moving through these stages? Do you sense that?
Yes. Some of the girls are definitely moving through, the stages of grief, and they're definitely moving through positive stages. Like they've been picking up, cheers their outlet, but they also been picking up things like, art and poetry as well. Like they've been picking up music. So they've been finding things that have helped with their coping as well. It's sad that they had to go through something for them to feel like they have to pick up other things to feel okay. But some of the girls have definitely taken this and kind of like flipped it. Like Milani and Rakaya, they have flipped it, and now Rakaya, she writes poetry. She does, flag football for school. Milani, she does plays, and she also does art and things like extracurricular. Our little girls, some of them did have a little bit of a strong feeling, but not like, too much, because they are still like between the ages of 4 and like 8.
Right.
But they've also been like, a little bit more high spirited. And that's also because that comes from us doing the check-ins with them at practice and outside of practice.
We're talking with Nakia McCann this morning on Buffalo What's Next, host of the NPR podcast Embedded Buffalo Extreme. Thank you very much for joining us here on Buffalo What's Next. If you don't mind, I'd like to get into now, because obviously there's a lot of serious elements to this story, but at the same time, there's also a fascination for me about the process of putting this podcast together. Mm-hmm. You're from Buffalo. We're talking about Buffalo. You're down at school at Virginia State. Talk about what it was like producing this podcast. How was this accomplished? I know how hard it is just to do this program every day with 3 of us trying to run it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what this was like.
Honestly, it was really hard. Like, when I talk about it, I definitely have to take a deep breath, because it's something that was not built overnight for sure. Like, there was nights where it was like, I'm up all day doing schoolwork, and I'm also up doing backtracking. Like, I'm tired, like there was weekends where it was like, I do want to go do school activities, but it was like, I really want to do this podcast. I don't really care about missing, parties or anything like that. I want to make sure that this podcast was out. The process was such a long process. Like, even just when they first pitched it to me, honestly, I was just like, I'm already knowing this is going to be hard. Like, I had my doubts about that too. They kind of made it a little easy, but not really. They worked around my school schedule, but it was also like, we have a job. We have to get this out. Like it was like, there was hours of taping. There was hours of conversation. There was times where I had to take breaks in between. That's just like, it's too intense. There was times like that. The initial process of it is just, it felt like I went through the alphabet, A through Z, honestly. Like, I went through every, emotion. I went through every like mental challenge as well, and just physical. I'm not used to really talking in front of a microphone and having it, in my face when I say anything. And also like just the personal effect of it. Just we're not used to having any type of media or anything, or I'm not used to having to talk with my aunt and my mom with a microphone. And also just getting those interviews too was really hard because they're in school and I'm in school. I'm out of state, so it was like whenever I had time to, I was like I had this free weekend. Let's go to Buffalo. Let's try to do this.
So
the
you and a
process-
producer would come to Buffalo
Yes,
then?
yes, she would. And it was hard because it was like on days that I was like completely free, they weren't, and it was like days that they were completely free, I weren't, and then just me having to come back and forth from Buffalo, and then I went to a competition, and then I went to Florida. It was really hard trying to balance school and the podcast because it was like there's no way I could make this 50-50. It was kind of like 100% and 100%. I can't fail school and I can't fail this podcast. So it was like, it was a constant, battle of trying to balance everything. And it was definitely hard because it was nights where I was like, I have to do my schoolwork early in the morning just so we can get this all done by tonight, And also when I was coming back to Buffalo, we had times where it was like, we're meeting at 11 a.m. and we wouldn't get done recording and taping and getting everything together until 12 a.m. Like the next, 12 a.m. Like those are full, shifts. There's breaks in between, of course, but nobody expects you to record in that much time. Then I only had probably like 2 to 3 times where I was in the studio. Most of it was Zoom work. Most of it was just trying to get in person, but most of it was Zoom work, and the other half was like recorded tapes from them and recorded tapes from me, and they sent me with a recorder, and I'm just like, what do I do with this? What's going on? Like I was hearing about levels, and I'm hearing about different words and vocabulary, and I'm like, okay, I see what this is gonna be. It's definitely gonna be a big roller coaster, but I'm ready for it. It was one of those roller coasters that you're not scared of. It was kind of like a kiddie roller coaster, but it wasn't like, it was just like that because it was like a kiddie roller coaster, but it was like with a huge ride. Like it just was an ongoing
Kept going.
one. Like it just was the fear of it being a huge roller coaster, but in a kiddie manner. So
Gotcha.
that's just kind of how it felt.
And then you actually went down to the NPR studios in Washington?
Yes, I went down to NPR studios in Washington for 3 days, and out of those 3 days, we worked. I was in the studio recording. I did interviews, but they made it a very comfortable process. Like if I didn't want to talk about anything at the time, that was a free space for me not to. There was also times where it's like, if I need a mental day, I had a mental day. There were when I was in DC, they made it very comfortable for me. Like Raina and Andrew, they definitely made it very, very comfortable. Like just the whole schedule in general. And also just seeing how NPR honestly works is kind of weird too, because it was like people working below, and it was also people working in the studios. I'm walking past studios. There's things that I listen to on social media that is based there, like the Tiny Desk, and I was like, oh my god, like I was kind of fangirling, definitely. And just seeing like a big studio like that, it was kind of weird for me because I classify myself as like a small city girl from Buffalo. Like you don't expect yourself to go from Buffalo to a national podcast, especially, and then go to one of their headquarters in DC. Like you don't expect that.
Yeah.
So it was new.
Next up on Producers Picks, you'll hear from the individuals responsible for Healing Grounds Coffee and Sanctuary. Dan White and Asman Ndayisabwa spoke with Thomas O'Neill White to talk about the community space they're creating in the west side of Buffalo, all centered around a warm cup of coffee.
I think people in the neighborhood fondly remember Sweetness 7, and that's the space Healing Grounds resides in now. Do you feel like you're bringing the old vibe back that Sweetness had, or are you going about it differently?
I think we're going about it a little differently. We're bringing in a different community, and we're bringing in a different group of people. We're also, uniting everybody that's in the area, trying to make something that's something similar to what Sweetness 7 had, but it's going to be more inclusive and more geared towards health and mind and body.
What by different community? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we have groups from Cafe Aroma, which is another cafe up the street, and there are people that are interested in what we're creating down here, so they're looking to support us in any way they can. They've been helping us with moving bricks outside of the building that we've been cleaning up, and there's a lot of community that's being brought together along with this.
Yeah, you both talked about there a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this project. So I've read Healing Grounds being called a worker cooperative that bucks the hierarchical nature of the played out corporate workplace. Is that the idea you're going for, and what does that mean? We don't often think of cafes as a corporate workplace in any way.
Yeah. So we are a worker cooperative, which gives an opportunity for not only myself and Osman to be owners of this business, but it gives the people that work for us, our employees, a path to worker ownership. So, your typical job, like if you're an employee, you're never going to own it unless and even if you become the CEO, that doesn't necessarily mean you own it. So this really gives an opportunity for people to take power back over their labor and feel valued in the workplace. And, you don't necessarily think of cafes as a corporate place, but Starbucks is probably like the most corporate cafe, or more so a coffee shop that you could think of. But
yeah,
when I go to a Starbucks, which I don't, but anytime I've been in a Starbucks, it's a very like cold feeling environment. Everyone's in their own worlds, like not talking to each other, which is fine. And sometimes cafes are good places to go do your work and like be in your own space. But also what we're offering and creating and cultivating is people to be able to connect with each other. We have big community tables that people can sit next to each other and share ideas. So like what Osman was saying, we do have some of the same things that Sweetness was about, which was about health and community, but it's kind of bringing a bunch of different communities together. The community that Osman and others had cultivated at Cafe Aroma, and all the people that he's met along the way, and all the people that I've met along the way that are coming into the space to support us, and all the neighborhood people and all the people that did go to Sweetness and supported that space, and that it meant a lot to them are also coming back into the space and just happy that there's another cafe, and I already see and within a week that we open there's already regulars, and like people coming in every day. So we're just grateful for the support of all those people.
And let's get into like health. I mean, community obviously is like the thread of what you guys do. But with the sanctuary, is that the same space as where Healing Grounds is? Is it the same space?
So there's two addresses. So there's 220 Grant Street, which is the cafe, and that's on the corner of Grant and Lafayette. And then there's 218, which is the storefront right next door to it. This is a small storefront community space where we have different events like open mic nights and intuitive paint nights. We also have healing circles, and men's circles and women's circles and people circles. And it's also open to other people in the community to be able to rent it, whether for like a working space or to have a workshop or have their own events. So yeah, so it can be inviting to other people to be able to utilize it. And
so it's a community space,
yeah,
basically.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is it how do you get that word out? How do you promote that, hey, we're not just a cafe, like we've got all these other things going on? Is it just like the foot traffic that comes in, or are you promoting it in different ways? What does that look like?
We have our social media page. We have our Instagram page, The Healing Grounds Co-op. You can follow us on there. We have most of our flyers and our live events that are coming up and recurring events posting on there. We have a lot of foot traffic, yeah. The two spaces operate at the same time, basically. So when you want, you can rent it out to be a sanctuary and have it like an office, or you can rent out the cafe, or just show up to the cafe and have coffee, or have the sanctuary spaces place to do an office job and have coffee delivered into there. So they've been working in conjunction together. So it's a little something different, but also offers something that the community can get involved in and it be reaching into a different space. You know, you got an office space, you got a place where you can do yoga and study. So yeah, we're offering a bunch of different things right now.
Seems like it fits in well with the neighborhood, that part of the West Side, that Grant Street corridor, and you guys both live in that community. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Long Island, New York, like North Massapequa, and I had the opportunity to move to Buffalo about 9 years ago to just get a fresh start with more opportunities. It was cheaper living. Long Island was just becoming, overpopulated and too expensive to live, and yeah, I just didn't like living there, to be honest.
Did you have any contacts here at all?
Yeah, I had one friend that I knew, and he kind of just was like, gave me the opportunity to stay with them and get a job, and just said there's more opportunity here, and it was just starting to grow, like we were talking about earlier. It was just starting to build and gain some momentum. So I gave it a chance and just like left everything, and and then I kind of started building my life and settled on the West Side, and about 5 years ago I bought my first home around the corner from where Sweetness 7 was, and and then since it closed, there's kind of been like a gap in that space, and it was kind of like a central part of the West Side, and and there's a lot of like people out there that are hurting and suffering. A lot of people that are addicted to drugs and have mental health issues and experiencing poverty. And it's interesting to being in like a gentrifying neighborhood while also like noticing and witnessing so many people being and being in poverty like myself. I had the opportunity to buy my own home, but I've kind of just been like scraping by to make it. But I decided to invest in myself, to believe that I can, didn't have to succumb and just like work for somebody else and make one person rich while they didn't value me and just gave me enough barely to live. And I knew I could create something better, and not just opportunity for myself, but for others to be able to, gain some equity and ownership of things.
Damn the man. Osman, from our brief conversation before we went on, you've got a very interesting background.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it.
I was born in Kigali, Rwanda. We survived the Rwandan genocide in '94, and I immigrated to America in 2000. Grew up on the West Side all my life. We settled in the Richmond area, and I was able to see what's going on in the community growing up in it. I went to high school nearby. I went to Canisius High, and it's walking distance away. And I was just able to see both sides of like the rift of what's going on in that central area of Buffalo, and basically it just encouraged me, like Dan was saying, to kind of like form this area of change or something different where we can gear the progression towards something different and better, right? So I've always been a big fan of coffee, so I've always been a big fan of coffee and making drinks. So the cafe has always been something like a dream hobby of mine, kind of like want to start a business, being a coffee shop or like a little restaurant. So it kind of goes hand in hand. When I met Dan, things just kind of clicked and just decided to just go for it. Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Buffalo? Was it like the first time you had been to the United States?
Yes, Buffalo was the first place. That was my first exposure to the United States, and I liked it. The community was helpful. I grew up and went to school at School 45 when I first landed here, and it was a very culture pot mix of people. So it wasn't too hard to meet people that were like me or from an area near mine or even spoke the same language. Every day I walk up and down Grand Street and I hear people speaking language that I already speak. So did that offer you like kind of like a certain comfort level? Absolutely. Yeah, I was very comfortable. Make it seem like, you know what, you're not so far away from home. Absolutely. So it was always having like a community nearby that you can always just kind of tap into.
So you've been here 23 years. What are your feelings of the city now as compared to when you first moved here? How old were you when you first moved here?
I was 7 when I first moved here.
Okay.
Landed in somewhere around September. So yeah, I was 7 years old. When I first got the impression of Buffalo, it was new, of course, and my friends were always supportive of me and inclusive of me and making sure that I was feeling welcomed into this country. So I never really grew up with a negative outlook on just being away from home. Yeah, so it was always something that I always had backup in and support. You know.
And now the two of you are working together. I mean, who would have thought, someone from Rwanda, someone from Long Island coming together? Talk to me about this partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I met Asman some years ago at Cafe Roma because that was a coffee shop that I like to frequent, and yeah, I just loved his energy and just noticed that like he just had the sense of community that he brought around himself just like by working at this coffee shop, and just saw that he was not just working there, he was pretty much running it like single-handedly. Like every time I'd go there, it'd either be him like working by himself or a bunch of new people that didn't know how to make my drink. So I was like, I love showing up, seeing Asman. I knew he was gonna make it right.
Yeah.
I kind of started building this co-op with some friends, and then kind of just planted the seed along the way that to Asman that I was doing this thing, and I just seen his value and what he held and like the community that he created. Knew he would be a great addition. So he was like, yeah, just let me know, and when you're ready for me. And then he joined the team, and then from there we kind of just continued to build it, and through other things, things shifted and changed, and people had to, leave the project to pursue other things. But me and Asman were the ones that were able to, stick it through and see it through and come out the other side. And now we're finally open, and it feels really good.
Definitely feels good.
I wouldn't rather have done it with anybody else.
I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah.
You see it the same way, Asman?
Absolutely, yeah.
And as we were having the conversation yesterday, just kind of about community, and you said our commonalities outweigh our differences, and that's something you're trying to, I guess, promote with Healing Grounds and the Sanctuary.
Absolutely, yeah. I want, and like a mission of ours is to bring people together of all like walks and shades of life, and realize that we do have more in common. We're all humans, I believe like we're all part of the human race, and race has been a thing to like pin us against each other, to make us think that we're different because of outside appearances. But really when it comes down to it, we all have a heart, and I believe in a soul, and I feel like we're all connected, and we live on this earth that is our home, and and I think it's important for us to be able to come together, because like when we come together we could build so many great things, but when we're isolated and apart, like through COVID and all that, it's like it keeps us disconnected, and it's hard. I feel like community and connection is an essential part of life, and I feel like we all need that, and the more that we realize we do have more in common than our differences, and we'll be able to come up together.
Yeah, and this could be like an opportunity to basically like you were saying earlier, like how I was basically welcomed to, or my experience were when I was welcomed to America and Buffalo. This could be an opportunity for me to basically share the community that I've gathered or cultivated with the rest of the community through Healing Grounds. Yeah.
Is that a lot of work?
No,
cultivating that community?
Absolutely not. You're just going out, you're being friends with people, you're meeting people that are very interesting, you work together on certain projects. There's a lot of people that I've worked with art projects on, installments, or even just any ideas of things that I feel that are important to me, and these people back me up on, and boom, you have a community and you've cultivated something. Yeah.
Are you an artist too?
I am an artist, yeah. I draw, I sketch, I paint, I do digital art, traditional art. I'd like to get into sculpting, so that's probably one medium I haven't tried, but yeah, I'm pretty handy with most mediums.
One thing that that I haven't got into, that I'm looking at my question list right now. The people want to know, what's on the menu?
Oh yeah, we got healthy food. Everything is gonna be basically organic and very healthy. We're gonna have rutabaga pancakes, French toast, breakfast served foods like wraps, sandwiches, tempeh BLTs. Why don't you name out some of our specialties, Dan?
Yeah. So like the whole idea behind the cafe is very like holistic approach to things. So, you know, being very intentional of like all the ingredients that go in everything, down to like the spices, you know, being all organic, and, you know, using like extra virgin olive oil instead of like your typical vegetable oil.
Right.
And you know, sourcing things like locally, you know, from, you know, either local farms or trying to keep, you know, the local food chain shortened, and supporting, you know, smaller companies. But yeah, like our breakfast sandwiches are definitely like a signature. I know from Long Island, you know, coming from Long Island, it's like that was my thing. A bacon, egg, and cheese is like, you know, everything. When I first came to Buffalo, I was on the hunt and I was searching, and I you know, couldn't find the one that was, you know, it for me. So I was like, I just got to open my own place. And so, but it's got a different twist on it. So we're sourcing all our bread from Bread Hive, which is another worker cooperative. And so yeah, 2 fried eggs with some kale that's like marinated in some olive oil and salt and pepper, some tomato, some raw cheddar cheese, and then we've been making some our signature tempeh bacon, which is from fermented mung beans, and then we sauteed in some liquid aminos and coconut amino acids, and it gives us this very like savory flavor that's like close to bacon, but it's a lot healthier for you. It's good probiotic, good for your gut health. And, yeah, so it's our little twist on like the breakfast sandwich. And but yeah, like you were saying, Ayurvedic pancakes, which is another like healthy twist. You know, Ayurveda is a ancient Indian medicine, which is also like holistic and deals with a lot of like different herbs, medicinal herbs and spices that are, you know, healing to the body. So there's a lot of that infused on what we're offering. So the batter is made from oats instead of flour, so it's gluten free. And then yeah, just a lot of like intentional ingredients: cinnamon and cardamom and ginger and dates and different things. And yeah, all sorts of lunch items and paninis, chicken pesto paninis, and black bean burgers, and
yeah, that's very healthy. Very healthy. What's going to be your hours of operation once you had the grand opening?
Yeah, so we're looking to expand, but right now we're Thursdays through Sundays 8 to 5 at the corner of Healing Grounds. Yeah.
And then the grand opening Saturday, July 1st. Anything? I mean, obviously it's a grand opening, but is there anything like special that you got going on?
Yeah, it's gonna be a special all day event. We'll be open initially from like 8 to 12, just our like normal hours to serve breakfast, and then from 12 on into the night, where we'll have people performing throughout the day, different like local performers playing
inside the cafe or at the sanctuary.
At the sanctuary, but like we'll be utilizing both spaces for people to be able to, you know, get some food and some drinks, and it'll be art, and yeah, just a lot of local artists and people come together, and so it'll be a big event. It'll be lots of fun, and yeah, we're excited for it.
Me too. Yeah.
And the feedback from the community, all positive?
Yeah, so far it's been incredible. You know, hearing anyone say like this is the best omelet I ever had, or the best coffee I ever had, or you know, and just like being like, oh, I'm gonna be coming here every day, just like, and to see my friends and you know, the people that work with us, their families, and coming in the space, and just like it just like fills my soul, and yeah, I'm just happy to finally be in this part of like being open to the public and serving up some good food and medicine.
Where do you see Healing Grounds and the sanctuary in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
I can see it as being like the central hub of where the go-to like coffee spot to go and like conversate with friends and hang out, or even like something more serious. You want like something secluded in an office area where you can just go and focus, and we can just transform it into that. or even have it be like, oh, this is my yoga studio. I'm gonna go and practice some yoga, go meditate, or even go see my bi-weekly open mic nights. So I see it being like a lot of things that fosters to the community, and the flexibility of the space being able to be rented out to anything that the community basically asks for is something that is going to be a strength for us, basically. Yeah.
And Dan?
Yeah, I'm definitely ambitious and a big dreamer, but I like to just dream bigger than however big I think I can dream. But yeah, I would like to potentially own the building that the cafe's in, and just have that be like a cooperative space in general. And I feel like the cooperative movement is building a lot of momentum in Buffalo, and just started with one some years ago, and thanks to Cooperation Buffalo, which is one of our partners that has been helping us to make this possible, and they're like an incubator for co-ops, and it just builds a little community amongst us too. Like you said, we're working with Bread Hive and extra pizza, and a lot of different cooperatives that are coming up. But yeah, and I also see us potentially having some more spaces, some more healing grounds, cafes popping up throughout the city, and would eventually love to get some lands, collectively, and have our own farm and really be like a full farm to table, restaurant, and show that we can support and sustain ourselves, because sustainability is one of our main things, and how
So the last question, and I ask this of every guest, very broad question, but what does Buffalo need?
Better coffee, good food, yeah, and the community.
All right, by better coffee, what do you mean?
Well, prepared properly, obviously, and served properly. It's not just curating beans and saying you're going to toss it into a machine. You're going to make good coffee. You got to have good machine. You got to understand how to work it. You got to understand how to operate, and if you're making espresso, the proper temperatures and the proper pressures. And if you're just making drip coffee, you got to have a proper recipe. So, a better tasting coffee. A better tasting drink, the science of coffee coming at you.
Right. And Dan?
I would say healing and intention. I think, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of people that they're hurting and suffering, and a lot of what people just need is, to feel loved and valued and cared for, and just being mindful of where the things that we're putting in and on our body are coming from, and knowing the sources, and we also serve cacao at the cafe, not just coffee, and but our coffee also comes from an intentional place, from Eco Exchange, and our cacao comes from Guatemala, and it comes from these Mayan women's collectives that have been harvesting these cacao trees for generations, and putting a lot of good pure intention and love into it. And but yeah, I think
how'd you find out about them?
So a friend of mine had basically, he was holding cacao ceremonies during COVID, during the lockdown. So this time where we're supposed to be isolated from each other, he was actually bringing people together through it all, and being safe and cautious, of course. But and then I drank this cacao, which is pretty much just chocolate in its most pure form, and it just kind of planted a seed in my mind, and helped me to get in touch deeper with myself, and sent me on this spiritual journey. And then I ended up going to Guatemala and connecting with the people down there, and through Cacao Source and the women's collectives, and yeah, it's just a really beautiful intentional beverage that it's kind of like coffee in a way. It gives you some good energy and good feelings, but yeah, it helps you to sustain that energy throughout the day, and has a lot of health benefits. So. But yeah, healing and attention, I think Buffalo and connection and community is what we all need.
And finally, Kenny Harris and the crew from Signature Cutz.
This is Buffalo What's Next, and recently we took the show down Main Street for a taste of community. Barbershop community, that is. Courtesy of the shop Signature Cutz. It's a busy Thursday in advance of a Saturday when most of the barbers will be heading to Connecticut for the Barber Expo. Kenny Harris, owner and operator of Signature Cutz, says it's money and time well spent.
You know, being the elder of the shop, you know, I got a lot of stars around me, man, young stars.
Yeah.
So we gonna show them the way. They gotta see what's the next thing going on. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
So these guys are good. We got a great opportunity. The business is actually starting to flourish on a whole nother level. As far as just more corporate, you know what I mean? As far as just, we got all walks of life that comes by here. You know what I mean? Like, we're not just one style barbershop. We cut everybody here. We service everybody, everyone. You know what I mean? So it's a good opportunity, man, for everybody, man. We like, I call us the melting pot of Buffalo. You know, we the melting pot of Buffalo. You're never gonna see all kind of nationalities and walks of race in one area consistently.
Right.
That's what we do, and that's what we build. That's what we about. You know what I mean?
All 11 barbers are busy. It's craft. It's performance art. This is Tarika Moppins. We spoke this winter, not long after she and her coworkers pulled people from the Christmas blizzard for a weekend, safe and alive, in a barbershop. And how's business been today?
Business been busy today. Tomorrow's probably gonna be a little bit more busier because we all leaving for the Barber Expo Saturday. So everybody really wanted to book their appointments for Friday. So it's pretty busy for us.
Yeah. And then you're going, like you said, a Barber Expo in Connecticut.
Oh yes.
Have you been to one before?
I've been to one in Buffalo before. I've never been to one out of state.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. It's majority of us is probably our first time going to a Barber Expo out of town.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you know kind of what to expect?
Oh yeah, for the most part, you see a lot celebrity barbers, Instagram famous barbers, and all kind of stuff.
Give me one celebrity barber and one Instagram famous barber, if you don't mind.
360 Jeezy is a celebrity barber. The other lady name, I follow her. She's Mayweather's barber.
Oh, yeah, Floyd Mayweather.
Yes.
So she's out in Vegas?
Iced out barber. She is Vegas. She's in Vegas. How'd you know that?
We're Mayweathers.
Yeah, she's in Vegas. Yep.
Yeah.
So she's a celebrity.
You been out to Vegas?
I've been to Vegas, but I never went to her shop. I passed by it.
Yeah.
Next time I go, I'm definitely going. Absolutely.
So you learned stuff. The anniversary of 5/14 for Tarika was spent honoring Mother's Day. Her mom is gone, so she celebrated her aunt as family and friends came together on what she called a bittersweet day. What are you looking forward to next in your career?
My career? I want to be a celebrity barber. I want to travel. I want to be on movie sets and doing stuff like that with the celebrities, and just I can do that though because I don't have any children, single, and just no responsibilities.
And where do you get your creative ideas from?
Oh, that's a good question. Everybody around me.
Yeah.
All my barber brothers and sisters get my creative ideas from it. Look at that design right there. That's creative. Very creative. So I get my ideas and I get inspired by all these guys in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to probably look at the shape of somebody's head, right? To blend it all together.
Oh yes. Wow. Sometimes things just be off the dome. You don't really got to plan it. Just go for it and hope for the best.
I was no good in geometry when I was in high school, but it sounds like there's a ton of geometry in doing that, right?
Nah.
You don't think so?
You just got to eyeball it. You eyeball something, you got to have that picture in your head of what you want it to look like. And then you can create that. Once you got it in your head and how you want it to look.
You visualize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. That's outstanding.
Absolutely.
All right. It's standing room only in the waiting area, and nobody seems to mind. Everyone is enjoying the company. One of Buffalo's singing cops stops in to say hello. Producer Lorenzo Rodriguez hops in a chair for a fresh cut. Associate producer Charles Gilbert makes an appointment for Saturday. Timon basketball coach Jason Rowe sits in another chair, looking like a coach should, after his school won its first Manhattan Cup in 2 decades. For Kenny Harris, the sport was football, though his vocation seems to be making friends and keeping friends.
I'm gonna tell you a story, right? I was one day this was when I was playing with the 49ers, right?
Yeah.
And I was working. I was actually stretching. I was in the stretch line. I'm like, man, I could cut hair, man. It's so much easier. And then I was like, it was nice and everything. It was I said, I gotta cut hair. And it was just always in me. Like, it was in me. Like I had I just had it like a knack. You know, when I was in college, I cut the whole team. I was a team barber. And the coach would always tell me, you got to get some sleep, man. You got to get some sleep. But you go cut everybody hair before the game. What about you? You know, and I went to the University of Pittsburgh. You know,
So you didn't get a lot of sleep when you were playing ball?
no, I did, but I didn't. But
Because that's tough to recover if you're not getting your rest.
exactly. No, you're right. You're 100%.
Yeah.
But I was actually playing. I was trying to work. I was working. You know what I mean? So,
Always working, huh?
yeah.
That come from is that like a work ethic from your dad or your mom?
My dad, my grandparents, yes.
Dad?
Yes, yep. My dad, my grandparents, like my grandfather was paralyzed, man, from the waist down.
Come on.
So he had me doing all the work for him, you know what I mean? And I loved it though. Like I didn't even realize what I was doing, but it was, you know, it taught me to become a better person, a better man, you know what I mean? And be consistent, more consistent with everything.
Is your dad from Buffalo?
Yeah, he's from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Parents from
Where
Buffalo.
do you go to school?
He went to Bennett.
You went to
My
Bennett?
dad went to Bennett High School, yep.
All right, so you're 44, so your dad's probably older than me then. I'm 61.
He's about 69.
69. So
Yep.
he was a little past Poplinier.
Yep.
Was he with Curtis Aiken? Was he in that time?
Actually, I think he was a little before Curtis Aiken,
Little
too.
before
Curtis Aiken is my guy. You know, he went to Pitt also.
That's right.
That's my
I
guy.
forgot
That's my guy.
that.
He
That's
did.
right. Did he bring you down?
He didn't.
He come and sweet talk
He
you?
welcomed me. Definitely welcomed me into Pittsburgh. Definitely.
Yeah.
Man. You know, and he kind of inspired me to get a barbershop also because he had a barbershop right there on the hill, right on campus.
Oh, come
basically.
on.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. How's he doing?
He's good. He's good. I haven't talked to him in a while though.
But he's still in
But
Pittsburgh.
I know he's still in Pittsburgh. Yeah, doing his
Does he
thing.
keep his roots around here?
Yeah, definitely. He definitely.
Okay. Nice. All right. So your dad went to Bennett. Huh? What did he do for a living?
My dad actually was he was a lab tech, like engineer. He's an engineer.
Engineer? Yeah.
Yeah, he worked at Honeywell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Allied Signature.
Yeah. Now you went to St. Joe's.
Yep, I went to St. Joe's.
But did you grow up in the city of Buffalo?
Yeah, I grew up in Wyoming and Delavan. Yep.
Wyoming and Delavan.
Yep.
So what
Where the
school
French-
would you have gone to if you didn't go to Joe's?
Man.
Yeah.
Kenny Harris calls
Your dad's
Bennett
a-
D1 high and thinks the city of Buffalo is full of great athletes, but they need year-round facilities to reach their potential. He says his shop has a role to play in the community. That's why they recently hosted a youth basketball tournament at MacArthur Park. That's why they gave out free cuts outside the Jefferson Avenue Tops last year. Another barber comes free. It's Justin Hawkins, best known as Juju. They say he's a LeBron James fan, but today he's wearing the colors of my favorite team, the Buffalo Braves.
What about the Buffalo Braves? You're not old enough to remember the Buffalo Braves. I am.
No, I'm definitely not old enough. I just like the style. I like to represent Buffalo as much as possible.
Yeah. You from Buffalo?
Yeah, I'm from Buffalo.
Where'd you go to school?
Hutch Tech.
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice. When did you become a barber?
10 years ago, I got the barbershop. 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are you going to this expo in Connecticut this
Yeah,
weekend?
yeah. I just booked all my stuff today.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you
Excited.
expect?
You know, I don't know what to expect. This is my first time ever. I've been cutting for 10 years and never been to one. So I definitely expect it to be big. A lot of barbers, a lot of stuff I've never seen before. I'm excited.
Yeah. Is it a way of getting a look at other people's ideas and maybe use it on your own?
Exactly, because I'm super creative, so I like to see what other people go do and see what type of creativity that could involve in me. Like, so if I see something, I'm like, okay, I can put certain things together and be like, okay, I can do that now.
So do you visualize the design that you're going to do
For sure.
before you go? Yeah.
For sure, yeah. It's almost like some movie type stuff. Like I can literally see it, and it's like I'm tracing it, and it's not actually there, but I can see it as if it is there already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever were you able to do that with drawing?
Yeah, so I was always really good at drawing.
Oh.
Yep. So it transferred naturally to barbering.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That makes some sense. Yeah.
So when I was first coming up, like as a barber, that was like one of the first things I actually did was like draw designs to build up my clientele until I got good at the other stuff. 'Cause that stuff came naturally to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the instruments, there were no problem learning the instruments and the
No.
blades and stuff like that.
Surprisingly, no, it was pretty easy.
No cutting. Nobody
Yeah.
got cut.
No.
I couldn't do it. There's not a chance now.
For real. It's difficult. advise somebody just to jump in and try it, but for me, it came naturally.
Yeah.
I feel like that's certain stuff don't come natural for everybody. Like, it might not be what came natural for me, but it might be another area of cutting hair that come natural for everybody.
I think it's interesting that you can visualize it like
Yeah.
that. I don't think a lot of people can do that.
Right. I don't think so either. So yeah, I like that. I like that I'm able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So how's business been?
It's been really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's been really good. I had a side clientele for at least like 8 years now, so business is usually always good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. How many days a week do you work then?
6.
You work 6 Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, Monday through Saturday, take off Sunday. And I do have shorter days like Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I have shorter days. And then like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm here all day.
Oh, okay. So you can cut out a little early on the other day.
Exactly.
Makes up for it a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. And those are slower days. People usually want a haircut for the weekend. So Thursday, Friday, like today, Thursday, I got in at 8:20. I'll probably be here to 7 o'clock.
Hey, so one other thing, about the business. You gotta take care of all your expenses and all that stuff, right? How do you do that?
So I actually just got my LLC probably 2 months ago, and now I'm figuring out now. But now I got a business bank account and I got a business credit card. And I just do all my expenses all through the business credit card.
Okay, so it's all right there,
Yep, it's all in one spot. Yep, so the business credit card is also through the business bank account, so everything is in one account. And then, so it's actually a lot more simple because now all the transactions on that card is just my expenses. So it's actually simple for me. Yeah.
I gotta figure that out because if stuff beats me up.
I YouTube everything, so I look into all that stuff to figure out what's the best way to do it.
Yeah, you learn off of YouTube.
Yeah, everything. I learned how to cut hair off of YouTube. I never went to barber school. Yeah, I learned off of YouTube. I learned everything off of YouTube.
That's incredible. That is really, really incredible. Wow. Nice. Well, very good. Nice talking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate
Especially.
We thank you for joining us. This has been Buffalo What's Next Producers Picks. We'd like to thank all our guests this week, including Nakaya McCann from Buffalo Extreme, Dan White and Asman Ndayisabwa from Healing Grounds, and the crew at Signature Cutz. As a reminder, Buffalo What's Next airs on WBFO every weekday, 10 to 11, and with a re-airing each weeknight at 9 p.m. Also, each episode of Buffalo What's Next is also available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as the Amplify BTPM app, and also on demand at WBFO.org. I'm Lorenzo Rodriguez. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Buffalo What's Next on WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.
This is WBFO History Bite, bringing you a peek into significant historical events for the week of June 26th through July 2nd. I'm your host and WBFO Program Director Tom Barrich. This is one of the more recent ones I've brought up. New York legalizes equal marriage on June 26, 2011. And taking a cue from New York, the U.S. Supreme Court follows suit and legalizes equal marriage nationwide on June 26, 2015. June 27, 1986, a new band advertises in the Buffalo News about a local show with their very first time playing out at the Continental in Buffalo. That band, the Goo Goo Dolls. June 29, 1894, writer of White Fang and The Call of the Wild, Jack London, is sentenced to 30 days in the Erie County Penitentiary for vagrancy. July 1st, 1936, the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, the world-famous BPO, incorporated on this date. And one more fact here, while the idea of electric vehicles may seem like a new idea, the very first EV tested for the U.S. Postal Service occurred on July 2nd, 1899. You've been listening to the WBFO History Bite. Discover more stories about Western New York's past on the Buffalo History Museum's website. Learn more at buffalohistory.org. For WBFO, I'm Tom Barrich.